The issues of fiscal governance and 2023 towards economic prosperity is the crux of today's discussion. I will look at the policy being formulated by the CBN as it regards limiting withdrawals of individuals and corporate bodies. I will look at the repos that is coming from that direction. And of course, the Senate also meeting with stakeholders today in regards of looking at the issues concerning the withdrawal limit. And of course, some experts have said that it's quite a welcome development, while others said, well, they should allow the economy to pick up systematically rather than rush into this. What could be the implications of the policy of the CBN as regarding this? How does it affect politicians who are saying it that, well, it's a kind of political witch hunt that is being targeted on politicians by the CBN governor, as they say, because he was not allowed to run, and hence he decided to take this path to really target the political class. How true is that? Some experts have welcomed the development, and we are having a finance expert and also a business expert here in the studio, and he is Fred Uyigwe. Fred Uyigwe is a political figure in one of those political parties, and it pays that you are here in the studio with me. Good morning, Fred.
I thank you so very much for having me. Good morning to you, dear.
All right. Next to Fred at the extreme is an educationist, and of course, he is Osage Godsent Erunse. He is the president of Association for Educational Development, Edo State Chapter, and the executive director of African Emancipation Project. Good to have you join me.
It's a pleasure for you. Good morning, guys.
And again, I have another political figure in one of these political parties, and he is Romeo Ugbo. Thanks for joining me, Romeo.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And thank you, viewers.
All right, so let's quickly start, because some are saying that the fiscal governance is important, but how is it going to affect the 2023? We have the deadline of January 9th, at which we're going to be having the regulation on policy of the CBN as regards withdrawal limit, and the 100,000 set per week and 20,000 per day for individuals, and then we have that of 500,000 per week for corporate bodies. What do you make of this? Do you see this as a right step in the right direction? Because some other finance experts have said it's a welcome development. Do you toe the same opinion with them, Uigwe?
Yes, there are advantages to it, but I will start with the disadvantages, because the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages.
As a politician?
Not as a politician,
Okay.
but as an economist.
Okay.
What the central bank has set as limits, it's not practicable. Yes, it can be forced down the people's throat, but it is going to diminish, degrade the dynamics of economics. You have people who, businessmen and investors need to have flexibility in their transactions. And when you bring this, like what we have now, we do have, the limit is going to be 100,000 per week for individuals. So that already targets the small businessmen, the small entrepreneurs. Then for the corporate bodies, 500,000
per week.
And
then we have about 100,000 per day.
100,000 per day. Can you imagine a multi-billion-dollar international company being limited to withdrawals of 500,000, 100,000 per day? You can have casual workers, you can have workers who do not have bank accounts that you must need to service on a daily basis.
But that can be done online.
Thousands. Online for those who have accounts. What about those who do not have accounts? As a matter of fact, we know right now that those who do not have bank accounts in Nigeria far outnumber those who have bank accounts. And then you are talking about those who are not even literate enough to be able to undertake internet banking.
Live market women, for instance, traders.
Exactly. So you have targeted the market women. 90, maybe even 95% of them, you are limiting their business. And we are talking about a period like this where you need to stimulate the economy. You need to do everything to stimulate the economy and not stifle it. This policy stifles the economy.
Wow.
This policy makes it very difficult to do business. And then there is a second part to it. And that second part is the taxation, which is couched as a fine. That if you are going to withdraw more than 100,000 as an individual, you pay 5%.
5%.
That's an indirect tax. Government should not be subtle about their intentions. Government should be transparent, open. Tell the people, we want to tax you 5% for doing this and doing that. And let the people know that this is what you are doing. And not tell us that you want to limit what we can withdraw, but if we try to withdraw more than that, we'll pay 5%.
Okay, but that's a way of discouraging the process so that it can give way for a cashless economy.
The cashless economy is not something that you force on the people. You let people graduate into it.
Systematically.
Systematically, and over time. Your policies, a policy like this only goes to just like force it down the people's throat. And a lot of people are not going to be able to adapt. I have in my house an 18-year-old lady working with us who had never spoken English in her life. She's from Nigeria. It is not her fault that she doesn't understand English. She's an illiterate. Okay. And she has to be paid. She's a worker. How do you service such an employee? So, you see, we should not, and I find that very, very, very umbrageous.
Okay.
You know, we should never make people suffer for a problem and a fault that is ours. The administration of Nigeria has failed totally in all ramifications. And you will continue to pile up on the failure. This is a failed financial system. And then you are now piling up on it. Your fiscal policies should be able to service the populace, those who are actively engaged in economic activities. This particular policy does not. To come down to the two advantages that I think it may have. If you cannot, because of the political expediency of the moment, say, okay, we are going to have this policy without weighing it along with the other consequences. It is politically expedient that, yes, politicians may abuse excess funds during the period. But the system actually does not punish those who can afford it. All it does for them is make them pay 10% more to be able to do what they are still going to do. They are still going to be able to access all they want to access.
Yeah.
It is only the poor man who cannot afford that extra 5% or 10% that will be affected. If I have 10 billion naira to spend for my politics, and then you are taxing me 10%, I still have 9. You know, I will do it. But if I only have 200,000, you're already removing 10,000 from that. It will affect me greatly.
Yes.
Because my purse is small. So it targets the poor rather than the rich. And that is why when we go to election, we will make sure that those who have victimized us over this period, and are continuing to victimize us, even with such policies, will be made to suffer.
Oh, well, thank you for your contribution on that. But I must say that a lot do not agree with you when you said the administration of the country has failed totally. I don't know your statistics of saying that, though it's your opinion and not the opinion of independent television. But I think we should guide against that. Our utterances should be information based and not just to be generalistic.
Let me modify that. We have failed substantially.
Thank you. All right. Let's take your viewpoint in this. Do you have a different approach or a different view in this direction?
I feel not so different. You see, when you look at policy implications.
I want to hope that you will sound optimistic in this regard.
You know, I've always been optimistic. So I'm only a realist. The fact that I'm being realistic doesn't mean I'm being pessimistic. But the point is this: when you look at policies formation, you don't just look at a fragment of society to make laws. For me, it's laughable when you say the CBN governor is trying to target a politician. In fact, that would be the most stupid thing to do, because it is not only the politicians that live in Nigeria. There are more Nigerians that are basically not vying for elective positions.
Oh, okay. Point of observation. That statement was actually credited to the governor of Adamawa State, Ahmed Fintiri. He already said that. So you can speak in that fashion.
Yes, you know, I needed to say that because policy is something that affects the entire citizenry of the country, not just a selected few. And in policy formation, basically there are two things you look at. You don't just wake up one day and say, let this policy be in place.
Okay.
From the two issues we've had about new Naira notes and the issue of spending limits and thereabouts, it seems to be like decisions taken in a hurry. Even though the CBN has tried to come up to clarify it and make it seem like it has a whole lot of gain. But let's go back and look at some very basic principles that drives policies. Number one, if you think of policies, you think of the infrastructures that will manage that policy, upon which that policy will thrive on. The second thing, when you think of policy, you think of sustainability. Nigerians have gone beyond the medieval age, where you think you can just tell us what we want to hear and say to stop kidnapping. And everyone say, oh, it's to stop kidnapping, let's let it come. We need to be analytical. Now, the first point is, what are the structures we have in place to manage the limits in withdrawals? Okay, let me bring to terms that presently in Nigeria, most of us are able to get power supply by the use of our generator. Then let's go to internet, the internet fraud, the e-fraud that we currently have. What have the government done to curb the fraud? I mean, there is still this set of people you call the Yahoo boys today, having a field day. There was a research that was conducted recently. I can't really pick the body.
Okay.
In fact, over about 60% of that research shows that one Nigeria or the other have been defrauded by these guys. I mean, I was shocked because I didn't know it's that bad. I have not been defrauded. But my point is that there is the issue of massive e-frauding, as in fraudsters.
Electronic fraud, yeah.
Space. Then beside that, let's look at what does it take to get an Android phone. Remember that up till now, some states are still struggling to implement the 20,000 naira minimum wage. And for you to get an Android phone, to be able to carry out a whole lot of these transactions, you can tell the minimum amount you need. To get a good Android phone that would, even if you are able to get an Android phone for 60, 70K, it looks like you are playing business. Now, again, you now come to what is the viability of our network. I'm talking about what structures, what are the structures we have in place that can manage the policies. Because that's what I said. You don't just wake up one day and bring a policy. Because for me...
So for us to go cashless, we need the infrastructure.
Yes, I'm coming. We need these infrastructures. That's my analysis. And beside that, there is nowhere in the world where you impose on people that they must go cashless. I mean, it becomes an imposing effect that you must do it. I mean, by ensuring that you tactfully frustrate withdrawals. Because that's another way of enforcing on people to say you must go cashless. This is what you can have. See, there are businessmen. I am a growing up businessman. I can't even relate to some of this policy of you can't withdraw more than 100K every day. At my low level, I know what I have to spend to sustain my business. So I'm wondering, when you talk of people like the Igwe, when you talk of people like the Igwe, for example,
of course.
let me draw this somewhere. Now, by the infrastructural analysis, we do not even have it in place to manage these policies. Because how do you pay the vegetable seller in the market and tell her I need to transfer to you? Now, do you also notice that quite recently, a lot of people have phobia for transfer, as in they don't welcome transfer because of the fraud. I've met a lot of young people that are upcoming that run this POS that tells you how they have been defrauded with fake alerts.
Yes.
So these days when you want to purchase something, the seller tells you, no.
A lot don't even have ATM cards.
Fine, I need the money. So how realistic is this policy? What were the CBN thinking in terms of the infrastructures we have put in place to drive these policies? Let me also inform you that do you know that there's going to be massive job loss? Have you noticed the numbers of POS we have these days, not only in Edo State, all over the country? And do you know that that business thrives on cash?
And the CBN authorized this.
The CBN authorized this. That business thrives on cash. A lot of these POS are already saying they are out of job. Because if you tell somebody that you can only do a 100K business a day, some of them do as much as 500K, 1 million.
Okay, but don't you think all of these channels that came on board, the POS and ATM points, don't you think that also increased the influx of cash in circulation that CBN is trying to regulate?
Phil, can we face this reality? What's the percentage of our cash in circulation in reality? It's not that bad from my own opinion. I'm not saying something shouldn't be done about it. But there's a fantastic analysis that someone did on the internet, which I read quite some few weeks ago, talking about the fact that it was about 2.8 billion or something in circulation, something like that, I hope I'm right. Then he tried to do a comparison with somewhere like America and say Nigeria is about 1.8%. In America, it's about 10% cash in circulation. Now, you know why I'm making reference to the advanced world? We are quick to want to say in developed country. Developed country. That's why I'm making reference.
As a comparative study.
Yes, as a comparative study. Fantastic. Because in developed countries, they don't impose it. They are still allowed to use cash.
They're allowed to grow systematically.
Yes, my point is, we must devise new methods to face our problems and not try to artificialize it.
But do you welcome it at all? Do you welcome it at all as a development that should be applauded?
It will stand the test of time. We don't have infrastructure to manage it. Let me give you two more things. Okay. At this time, let me give you two more things that will shock you. Do you notice the alarming rate of, I do a lot of cash transfer. I have always been among the few that have advocated for, I don't go with money. It's part of my policy to manage my own spending. But do you know the frustration I face every week in transfer? As I talk to you, I'm battling with over 5 transfers that I did. I was debited. It did not drop. What is the viability of our internet?
The ones that dropped
The ones that dropped, thank you. You debited twice. Do you know how many of my business partners have picked me up on that? And say, you send me money, you didn't go, you are lying, you are lying, you are lying. I said, I have 5 currently. Then let's go to the various outrageous ways through which the banking system pay you and prepare you, so to speak. Sorry, I have to use that word. I mean the outrageous deductions. There are different kinds of deductions these days for every transaction.
50, 20, 100.
Is alarming. I ran from the commercial bank because of deduction. Suddenly 26K is out of the account. To another one, I saw worse. You are taking for SMS, you are taking for VAT, there's a deduction for transfer, everything.
And we have more coming in January.
That is not regulated. So we do not even have the infrastructural system in place to manage it.
Okay.
Talk less of the sustainability.
All right, thank you, thank you. Well, let's come to this fine gentleman, Romeo Ugo. You are a political figure, and you've seen the terrain in the 2023 election pathway to how it's going to be like. But do you see, because we've had this discussion earlier on where we said huge amount of money being used by political parties, you know, which should have been, you know, monitored, you know, by the various institutions like the EFCC, ICPC, so that they don't go against the rule and the Electoral Act.
Yeah.
Now, do you see this development as a development that will help curtail the expenditures of political party candidates and their parties as 2023 comes closer? Do you see it as a welcome development?
Well, I for one, actually, when the policy came up, I was shocked as a Nigerian. But I later, as a politician. So I sat down on my own. I also observed carefully, and I saw some reasons to it. I saw some good to it.
Okay.
But the problem is, do we really have things in place to manage this policy, as my brother earlier said? Because money being circulated, you know, everything has to be coordinated, you know. In civilized world, as he said, there's a limit to some money you need to have. And when you go to the bank, you want to withdraw, they ask you, what do you want to do with this money? Because I have a friend in US, you know, he told me, he said, they don't allow you to withdraw more than certain amount of money, you know, and all that. So when this thing came to Nigeria, I applaud it, like it's a way forward, because policy, things will change. You don't expect us to live in one, we live in one direction for a very long time, and things must change. I think this is a trying time for Nigeria. So this period, this policy, I welcome it, but I still need to still carefully observe it. And they still need to observe it and increase the limit. The only problem I have with this is the limit. That 20,000 a day is too small for individual, you understand? The 100,000 for corporate body is still too small. But I welcome the policy, it's a very nice one. But
okay, so which means you are not towing the direction of Ahmed Fintiri, the governor of Adamawa State, that said that it was targeted on the political class, of which you are one.
Yeah, it's, you know, like me, I'm a free person. I'm a politician, and I'm also running for a position. You know? So, and I don't really, I never plan to buy voters card. I never plan to pay someone to vote. You understand?
But in a way, it will affect your expenses.
Yeah,
if it comes on board.
Yeah, but this is Nigeria.
Although, like what is already in the public domain,
yeah.
The 5% or 10% charges that will be done on the amount that will be withdrawn.
Yes.
Like what Fred will also expand on.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Direct tax.
Yes, as direct tax.
Indirect tax.
Indirect tax. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but do you see that as what can also augur well for transactions?
Yeah.
At that point, in terms of funding elections.
Yeah.
Or campaigns.
The truth is, if you have money, like he said, if you have 10 million and you charge me 5%, it doesn't really remove anything from it. You understand that? It really doesn't. So, but I'm focusing more on the fact that the policy is a welcome one. I like it, but the limit should be, yes, it should be worked on. You understand that? And the truth is, everybody in Nigeria, some are complaining. Some Nigerians are complaining that the money, Nigeria is not settled, is not organized for this thing. We need change. Things need to be changed. You understand that? And I believe after the election, we will begin to understand that this policy is actually, it's going to help us. It's going to really help us if you look at it critically, because the money in circulation is a big deal we really need to look upon. You understand? Because people abuse money. People use money anyhow. And I think they are trying to make it a cashless society. Like me, I go cashless. If you ask me now, I don't have money on me. But if I want to do something, I do transfer. Okay. So they should also look at it. Now, my brother was talking about doing transfer and need be hanging and all that. Those are the things they should put in place. Those are the things they should look upon. Like, okay, why is it that some people, when they make transfer, it's hanged, you know? Now, why is it that this deduction is so much? Why is it that the money they deduct from you when you make transfer is this or that? They collect money from you. Sometimes they even deduct money from you. You will not even know for what reason. You understand that? So all these things, they should look into it if you really want this policy to be very effective. But me, I for one, I support the cashless policy. I support the fact that we should have a limit to what we withdraw a day. But the only problem I have is they should increase it. You understand? They should increase the limit. Maybe 50,000 is okay. 50,000 is good. Then for corporate body, 500,000 or 200,000 or so is okay,
All right.
not the 100,000.
Thank you.
So,
In case you're just joining me, it's This Morning on ITV, and the topic for discuss is on fiscal governance and 2023 towards economic prosperity. And I've been discussing with Fred Uyigwe, who is an economist and a finance expert, and of course also a politician. And educationist also Sagi Godsent Erunse, the president rather, of the AFED, Association for Formidable Education and Development. And also Romeo Ugbo, who is also a political figure in one of these political parties. Now let's take a different tour, Fred Uyigwe. We look at the aspect where we are having challenge with debt and even settling of debt. Our national and subnational debts are growing every day. And reports have it that we even spend billions of naira in servicing our debts annually, both national and subnational. And we've also seen reports where it was said that the third tier, which is the local government, is being stifled by the state governments. Now, how do we free this access where we can have the fiscal policies that will help reduce the bulk that we use or that we borrow from other banks, institutions outside the country? Do you see this fiscal policy that it is going to change the narration of things in times to come? And if it will, how should it be done by the CBN that will help regulate our national debt?
Like I've said many times before, sometimes too, on this program.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with borrowing. As a matter of fact, if you have a viable endeavor, an investment to undertake, it may require having to go beyond your resources, your available resources, to be able to borrow for the purpose of accomplishing your target.
But not going beyond your capacity to service or pay back. Because that's where we are having it at the subnational. State governments are owing huge amount of money that they are not able to completely pay back.
The question is, how much is a particular government? You know, the government is an organization. You know, these subunits, subnationals to our organizations, sub-organizations.
Yeah, those state like the state governments.
Yes, they are all organizations.
Okay.
Like the local government, they are organizations. Like you have your own organization.
Okay.
They are yardsticks, rules of thumb by which you borrow. If you borrow, a general rule of thumb, if you borrow the same amount as you have, that's equivalent to your assets. That's 1-to-1 on the ratio 1-to-1. Your assets and your debt on ratio 1-to-1.
Is that wise?
Yes.
It's wise?
Yes, 1-to-1.
Okay.
What you are borrowing, that's your liabilities. It's against your assets. Assets, rather, let me not say your assets, your equity.
Okay.
Okay? Your equity, it's one equal to your debt or liabilities.
Okay.
When your equity is equal to your liabilities, because your equity and your liabilities combined make your assets. Okay? When your equity is equal to your liabilities, you are considered to be within
Safe limits.
Allowing the safe limits, exactly. But when you now go beyond that, when your liability begins to outweigh your equity, that's when your creditors become apprehensive that you might not be able to pay.
Isn't that the situation that
And
state
that
governments are
is-
faced
that
with in
is
Nigeria,
when-
for instance?
Yes, that is where we are. And that is when, too, your creditors begin to demand for higher interest rates. Because creditors rely on ratings, that's credit ratings, to be able to lend to borrowers. So if you are borrowing and your credit rating is such that you are at a higher risk, then your creditors are going to want to charge you more in percentage. And that is where we are, unfortunately. And our economists, our financial experts, administrators, ought to know that there is a limit to which you do this. It's not as if they don't know, but they are pushing the envelope. You have to be able to do the calculations. How do these decisions affect the general economy?
Okay, does the CBN have the wherewithal to help subnational government, for instance, to plan in order not to exceed this limit?
Listen, I don't believe it rests on the CBN to even do that.
Oh.
Because we have financial experts all over the country. And we have some outside of the country that are Nigerians. It's no secret what needs to be done. The problem we have in this country, the biggest problem we have in this country, is that of corruption.
Mismanagement of funds.
No, corruption.
Corruption.
Stealing. At every point, people steal. And that needs to be corrected. And that is one of the advantages, too, of a cashless society.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It has a way of curbing that. Because
as implemented just now by the CBN?
Yeah, as implemented, and according to my friend, if modified.
Okay, if modified.
If modified. You know, it has that advantage of being able to track funds. Because when the bulk of what you are transacting on is in cash, then you cannot actually track it. So CBN wants to be able to have a record and wants to be able to track transactions.
Okay, but we are yet to see government
to know about illegal and criminal transactions.
Okay, but do you believe or do you say that among the bodies that the CBN is tagging as corporate bodies or companies?
Yes.
Because you just said just now that governments are like organizations. Can be termed as organizations.
Yes.
So are you saying that the CBN also captured governments in terms of the expenses they will make as per cash-wise in these corporate bodies or companies that they said will not exceed 500,000 per week? because we are yet to see that. We are yet to see that. Or how did it leave the books?
The thing is, the CBN is a public organization. They cannot claim to understand the full dynamics of the private sector. The private sector is what drives the economy. Okay? The CBN is supposed to regulate it in such a manner that they will succeed and not for them to fail.
Okay, but what about the government? What about the government? The government, their expenditures, the cash. Isn't that going to be captured by the CBN directives or rules?
Cash as required, not as stipulated. The different companies, the different organizations determine what amount of cash they require. It's not for CBN to determine for them what to require. Okay. Because what we are trying to get, what every organization thrives for, is efficiency of operations.
Oh.
Okay? The thing is, it's not enough to be able to do something. It's to be able to do it for maximum result with the least resources. That's efficiency.
Beautiful.
Okay? And the CBN cannot dictate that for the organizations, in the private sector especially, or even in the subnationals.
Okay.
They have to, or for the individuals, at that. Everybody takes that decision for himself.
Oh.
I might decide for today to spend so and so money in cash. And while such other monies that I have available to me, I want to do by electronic transfer, I should have that flexibility.
After all, it's your business, whatever.
It's my business I'm running, and I'm going to pay taxes at the end of the day. So let me run it as efficiently as I believe I need to.
Okay.
Okay, because emergencies do come up. Like you talked about politics and political expenditure, for example. Many of the people we work with are in remote areas that do not have banks, that you cannot even reach out to. So you might need to send money through third parties to them and all of that. You have to have that flexibility. Okay, now we are going to have, for example, we are going to have agents at every polling unit. They have to be paid.
Okay.
Many of them are illiterates. And many of them do not have bank accounts. The payment you are going to make to them is to enable them get there, to make sure we have a free and fair election. So if we stifle the political parties, the free and fair election you want to have will not manifest.
Okay.
You want, I mean, your policies should never diminish the goals that you have set to achieve. Like, we have political goals, we have social goals, we have economic goals, we have, we have fiscal goals. We have different goals and we have different visions.
Okay.
That must not be diminished by our policies.
All right, let me ask this question in another way to you, Osage Godsend. Now, we want to believe, because he just brought in this beautiful definition of organization and government or subnational governments. Subnationals, I mean, are captured in this. Now, if this is exactly what the CBN directives are looking towards, that even the corporate bodies that the CBN is talking about is also capturing subnationals, as in state governments. Now, don't you see this as a development that will bring about accountability, in the sense that huge bulk transactions will be done online and it will be seen by the financial institutions that will also report to the CBN and also anti-graft agencies in order to guide transactions at subnational? Don't you think this would be a welcome development in that regard?
Well, Theo, I have not seen where it was captured how this is going to regulate the government parastatals.
Oh.
It wasn't vividly captured.
Rather, it was just centered on private.
It was just centered on private. And if you ask me, in terms of regulation of inflow and outflow of cash, the government should even be more regulated.
That's the one that is regulated.
Yeah.
Because that is where you have the highest level of fraud,
Abuse.
of
funds.
money.
Yes.
So it's not clear. Possibly that is a rethink for the CBN. Something they have to go back to the drawing board and ask themselves.
Yeah.
Because presently, Nigerians are crying. Anything to regulate the in and out of money within the terrain of the government. Because there is a gross mismanagement of our resources. So that has not been captured vividly. The reason why we have to spell this clearly is because, in this part of the world, we say the government owns the policy.
Yeah.
What I mean is that they can always tweak this policy.
But they are not above the law.
That is in words, not in action, not in reality. And that's in words. That's what we say.
But again, don't you think that the enormous responsibilities of subnationals, of governments at all levels, made it impossible, rather, for the CBN not to capture them stricto sensu?
No.
Being that the subnationals, or rather the national, pays the CBN.
If you think it in that way, what do you think about the multi-million dollars private companies? Do you know that some multi-million dollars private company in Nigeria spend sometimes even more? And besides,
Even more than the government.
Yes, even more. And do you also know that when you think of spending, you have to raise a voucher.
So that's a huge
You have to define what is this money meant for. That's the reason why we are saying there is need to review that policy. Because a lot of things are involved. And again, let me draw your attention to something. if you look at the reason why the CBN is looking at bringing in this cash limit withdrawal, they were talking about inflation rate. I am yet to see vividly how that really is going to cover inflation rate. You know, because to a large extent, when there is a limited money in circulation, overly limited, inflation increases.
Okay.
I'm sure we have the economic expert here. So I'm yet to see that vividly. Then they talked about the value of Naira. Euro is everywhere. Dollar is everywhere. Yet it has value.
Okay.
So is the value really based on putting an outrageous limit on withdrawal?
Okay.
These are issues that
let me ask one question. Let me ask one question that will round off the discussion this time. Starting with you, the pendulum will swing to you, from you to Fred, and of course we'll round off with you, Osage Godsend. Now, we are in the political era.
Yeah.
Election is fast approaching. We just have days. And the challenge is that vote buying, you know, seem not to be out of the electoral process. Now, what can be done by fiscal governance to checkmate vote buying, to stifle it, to eradicate it if possible from the electoral process?
Well, you see, I'm very happy for the question. And you see, Nigeria is changing. And as Nigeria is going now, everybody is becoming wiser. You understand that? So governments, if they have to come this idea of vote buying, they need to put some certain things in place. And one, first thing you need to know, some persons will tell you vote buying is part of the system. It can be worked on. Okay. If you and I put an eye on where we are going. Now, how much are they going to pay you? If they give you, can you take 5,000 for 4 years? What will that do for you? It is we, the individual, who first of all work on ourselves. Like, okay, this vote buying idea, I don't think I'm going to succumb to it. I'm not going to collect money for anybody, to vote for anybody. I'm not going to sell my conscience. First of all, when you have that awareness in you, you go out there. On election day, even if somebody give you 5,000, give you 10,000, say vote for me, you reject it, the person will be ashamed.
Okay, but these are the point of the prospective vote seller.
Yes.
Let's look at, from governance, fiscal policies.
Yes.
How can the CBN, for instance, how can it use its policies to stifle or eradicate vote buying? One,
this policy they brought now, limited funds policy.
Are you sure it will limit?
I think
because we said just now that even if it means paying extra charges like indirect tax, that as long as they are sure
you
that will win the elections or they want to win the elections, they don't care.
You know, they can really.
So this seems not to be checking it.
Yes. What I think they should do is everybody is a collective responsibility, because governments, they are even guilty of this.
All right.
Yeah. So it's a collective responsibility.
Let's take your viewpoint in that.
Yeah.
How to correct the process?
I don't think it's going to be by policy of the central bank.
Oh
no.
Okay. We must.
And this policy just now can't do that.
It cannot do
it.
It's
It's individual thing.
As a matter of fact, it's only going to make it difficult for the smaller parties that cannot afford it to do.
And you bring more money to the government, because the more you withdraw,
the
more you get.
The more you get. And then you have an unfair election.
Oh.
That's the result. Because you are not going to have those with money bags, those who have money bags, being able to fund it, whereas the small, credible candidates will not be able to do that.
Okay, but look at INEC, for instance, the electoral umpire, which seems impossible for the electoral umpire to track these parties and their candidates in terms of not spending or exceeding the limits set by the Electoral Act. Or otherwise, the Electoral Act, is it just for fun? Shouldn't there be a way that the electoral umpire would track these parties in order for them not to exceed these figures?
Yeah, the EFCC and ICPC have a lot of work to do.
It is laughable to even begin to mention spending limits by politicians and political parties.
Yeah.
Because, for one, you have not defined how these politicians should raise their funds. Elections cost money, whether you like it or not.
So much money.
There's logistics. For example,
and then we have third-party funding.
Then we are talking about media.
Okay.
Media. You have to pay for media. and it's a major political expense. A major political expenditure.
So are you saying the limits are not practicable?
They are not practicable.
Oh, okay. Are you talking from experience? Because you are a politician.
No, I don't. It's not just from experience.
Okay.
Yes, from experience for 1 year.
Okay.
But more so from an economic point of view.
Okay.
Just look at it. And see, there are things, look, economics is not really a rocket science. You just have to follow the fundamentals. Okay? This is your expenditure or projected budget, projected expenses. And these are the things you want to accomplish. Would what you have budgeted be able to accomplish what you want to spend it on? And how do you source your revenue or to be able to meet your projected expenditure?
All right.
So those are the
Okay.
considerations that you must make.
Okay.
Okay. And when you now come to the politician, you do that. You aggregate it. When you now come to the politicians and say, okay, what do these people need to do? How are they going to be able to fund it? Because if you want credible, free, fair, and transparent politics, okay, elections, then everything about the funding should also be put in such a manner that it will be free, fair,
All right.
and credible.
All right. Let's take your viewpoint in that, as we call it a wrap.
Well, I think it has been established. What INEC is currently talking about is not solving the problem, because if you say the limit is for presidency is 5 billion, but if you crowd cross-border, you pay 10%. That's not solving anything. It's not solving anything, because some people with the money back gladly do it. But let me bring a point in.
So which means vote buying has come to stay.
No, see, Phil, we can actually solve our problems because other countries have done that over time. The problem we have always had is there's difference between penalties and enforcement of those penalties. Most times we have penalties, and some people, quote unquote, that are above the law, when it comes to enforcing those penalties, they are taken out of it. For example, there are people that the EFCC should go after, that they are silent about. And Nigerians are wondering, because we have seen Bolo Van going into the house of some persons, and we are wondering,
So that's true.
what's the sources? But nobody is talking. EFCC cannot, they are untouchable. So the problem we
Is
have
it a crime to have bullion
is-
van in houses?
But it should be checked.
Because we see bullion vans
When
on
it
our
becomes-
roads.
No, it should be checked.
This is
Is
different.
bullion van
When bullion van goes,
a criminal tool?
Something is attached to it.
A bullion van should go from bank to
To bank, not from bank to home.
Residential.
Not to residents.
All right.
Bank to bank. So the problem we have always had is,
But do we have it on our law?
And
The bullion van, no.
Okay, we'll look into that. You still have the floor in 1 minute. In 1 minute wrap up.
all right, what are the penalties, and are the penalties stringent enough?
Yeah.
Are they such that will prevent these vote buyers from perpetuating the vote buying? For example, if you have a law that says if you attempt to buy votes as an extension, you can be imprisoned without alternative for fine. Then after the election, it is implemented.
Okay.
If as an ordinary person, probably I make an attempt to buy vote for somebody out there and I go to jail for it for 5 or 10 years,
Yeah.
you think I'm going to come out and do that again?
No, you won't
All
do
right.
it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Osage Goss, and big thanks, Fred Igwe, and of course, Romeo Ugbo, for taking out time
Thank you
to
for
be part of
having me.
this, and I wish you the best as the day grows older.
Yeah.
This is much you can take on the discussion, and next is insurance. Do stay.